The other big news story, I frankly couldn't give a damn, but there we go. Gary Lineker, no longer the host of Match of the Day. Yawn, yawn. Delighted to be joined by Roger Bolton, former BBC executive, good Lord, and host of Be Watch podcast. Rog, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. I'll try and ensure my teeth don't fall out in this interview.
Very good. Former BBC executive, well, you don't need to work anymore, mate. You've been milking it for years. What's going on, Rog? Come on.
Hold on, I was fired from the Beeb when I was 40, so...
Oh, well done. You'll do for me.
That category, OK. I've also just 2 years ago, terminated my employment as presenting feedback. So I have a love-hate relationship, shall I say, with the BBC.
Good for you, mate.
Good for you.
Yeah, let's talk about Lineker. Lineker's an extraordinary human being. The reason I wanted to do it quickly is there is no comparison by what I'm trying to say other than opinions. Today, Justin Welby has been forced to resign as the Archbishop of Canterbury because of information that he was aware of. But one of the things that Welby hacked people off so much about was this, you know, Rwanda's Nazism and this is Nazism and let's play some reparations and everybody who's not left is an idiot and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of people, religious people, have said to me for a long time, we switched off from Welby because Christianity is Christianity and politics is the other. One of the big arguments about Gary Lineker, of course, and there was that famous time a couple of years ago where he would tweet, it was his opinions, he's entitled to his opinions, but many people thought that as the anchor and the highest paid broadcaster on the BBC, you know, a state broadcaster, he should be forced to keep his opinions to himself. The fact he's been forced out of Match of the Day, has taken a massive pay cut and he's going to do some live football. Does that mean common sense has prevailed, Roger Bolton, or what?
Well, that's an entirely objective question, isn't it? With what do I say? Look, the BBC has lost 40% of its income in real terms in the last 15 years, right? It's making further cuts. It's going to have to make further cuts. There is no way in which they could renew Gary's contract at the same level as before. He would have to have taken a massive pay cut. At the same time, as you point out, there is all this concern about social media and whether or not he would be persuaded effectively to shut up. Now, the problem with Gary Lineker is that he's not on BBC staff. He's got his own business. He does a whole range of other things. And also, you will believe in this, people have a right to freedom of speech.
Yep.
So it's reconciling the right to freedom of speech with the responsibilities of being one of the BBC's main faces. And it's difficult. Anyway, I've always thought his departure was inevitable. The BBC can't pay that sort of money anymore. They do need people to stick more closer to social media guidelines.
Okay,
and
so
also,
that, all right, but that's
63, which is, you know, I mean, I'm much older than him, but 63, you've got to start thinking of a transition anyway.
Thanks very much. But the point that I don't get, and I know Shearer really well, is this. You've quite rightly pointed out that free speech is massively important, OK? I completely agree. I've pointed out that being on the state broadcaster where your salary is paid by us and we don't even ask to, there comes a responsibility. So there's an issue. Now, it suits, I guess, all sides. He wants the freedom, I guess, to be able to express opinions and do other things. It suits the BBC to make that cut. But the irony is, he owns a podcast business that's going through the roof. And one of those podcasts is the football podcast he does with Micah Richards and with my mate Alan Shearer. And part of this deal is that Gary Lineker's podcast, weekly, the football podcast, is now going to be on BBC Sounds. So my question to you is this. He got into trouble in the summer after the Euros by saying that England were crap, right? I actually agreed with him. And Harry Kane and everybody jumped up and down and the BBC says, oh, it's a bit harsh. Is he going to be able to say in his podcast, England last night were crap? Would he be censored for that? Because he's still making money and the BBC are still involved. So I don't understand that at all.
I don't. Listen, you've got to separate these issues out about who can say what. Okay. If you're employed on BBC staff and you're on the news and current affairs, you know, you don't tweet at all about anything. If you're somebody who just occasionally appears on the BBC, it'd be monstrous to say you can't say what the heck you like just because once a week or once a month you're on the BBC. The problem is when you are on regularly, but you're doing other things as well. And I think there's a big argument that goes backwards and forwards. What's most important? Your responsibility effectively to the BBC to not create trouble for it, not to use it to promote your views. On the other hand, your right for freedom of speech. Gary was right in the middle. I think in the end, he went too far and he should have moderated his views. But, you know, that's his choice. and I think he's a brilliant presenter. He will do the next World Cup. He will do other things. There's lots of people who can replace him, but lots of people can do a decent job. There aren't many stars, and he is one. And one of the big problems for the BBC always is, do you pay the market rate or do you do a discount? You know, if you believe in the market, you believe people should be paid what people are prepared to pay. The broadcast, the BBC, is more difficult. And the general position is the market's there, you pay them slightly less. But for a lot of people, it's a ridiculous amount of money anyway.
It's interesting that...
I don't know what you get paid, Jeremy. Would you tell us?
You what?
Will you tell us what you get paid and whether you think it's justified?
Absolutely, if you wanted to know, yeah, off air. I would say this to you, though.
How about on air? We know what Gary's getting paid.
Absolutely not. But I will say this. I don't work for a state broadcaster. I don't actually get my wages, if we're being completely honest, from people who we are forced to pay the BBC's subscription, and I think that's why there will always be criticism. I am for free speech, and I have a problem with Gary Lineker as a person. I think he goes, he's a typical lefty in my mind. But then I think the BBC has become that in itself anyway. I mean, I don't know if you heard this earlier. I had BBC 5 Live on, obviously from a football match. Got in the car this morning to take Oliver to school, and there was this BBC reporter in Azerbaijan, in Baku, and this person had phoned in and sent an email, I think, and said, you know, look, all these people, whilst he's out there, Starmer, pretending the world's there, they're not there, and this is all about this, and I think we should be worrying about pensions. The bloke blatantly lied, and he said, no, everybody's here. China here, Russia here, and 72% of the United Kingdom think this is right. I have an issue with the BBC, full stop, right? Don't have an issue with Gary Lineker personally.
No, well, I think you have got. What you've just said now is palpably absurd, to be absolutely honest. You've suggested that the BBC shouldn't have a reporter present at a major...
I didn't say that. What I said is he shouldn't lie.
Well, what's the lie?
He said that 72% of British people think that the green climate is a green economy, or what would happen with green issues is far more important than anything else. Where did that come from? When asked by a person why the main people... When asked by this person were the main countries who are releasing all these terrible things into the environment, like China and Russia, weren't there, it was just Starmer doing his thing, do you know what he said? He said they are here. Blatantly they aren't there. That was a lie. That's what I just said.
Well, I will have to check the delegate list or whatever, but I doubt it's a lie. At the most, it would be a mistake. And those people who believe that climate change, the vast, vast majority of climate change scientists who believe that climate change is serious and threatening to us, it is ultimately about the future of the planet. So that's reasonably serious.
I'm not saying it's not reasonably serious. I think that a majority of people in this country are more concerned about pensioners.
The BBC shouldn't have reporters at meetings like that. I didn't say that. What I think the BBC should not do is advocate a political stance that's patently obvious to many people. That's all. Listen, we can disagree about that. I agree with that. I agree. I grew up watching the BBC, but you only have to look at the BBC with respect, Roger. You only have to look at it nowadays and know exactly what its reporters, what its programme editors, what its executive producers are trying to foist upon the British people. Forget what I think. Ask the British people. That's why the BBC is in trouble. I congratulate you on your perspicacity, because I can't, actually. Of course, there are certain people who you think, I think we know what they think, and so on. But more generally, and you people don't believe this, most people in the BBC, in the news, the journalism, are trying to do a decent job reporting things objectively. Now, everybody's biased, and it may well be that there are elements occasionally of groupthink, but they genuinely try, most of them, to be objective. Now, they need to listen to people like you, and they need to listen to people that you represent. And there's a good case to say they haven't done that in the past. But to suggest they deliberately lie, deliberately.
I don't think they deliberately lie. I think what happens is they've been.
Don't believe that. Don't believe that for a moment. And if you want to have a situation in this country where we have the sort of lies and bias you hear in the States, you know, do you really want that? One of the reasons you, in talk, can do what you do, and I'm glad that you're there to do it, is because there's also a BBC committed to doing something differently.
Interesting point.
Mixed economy.
Rog, this isn't me in any way. Don't lose me off the screen. This isn't me in any way other than I'm being shouted at because I've got 3 ad breaks to do before 7 o'clock. We will do this again. It is an absolute pleasure. Roger Bolton, former BBC executive, here on Talk Drive.